welcome back. Now we're about to putting everything together. We talked about neurotransmitters are involved. We talked about the on and off switch. We talked about adenosine, GABA, histamine. Let's put everything together one more time. This will put things in different perspective and it will be easier for you to understand. So let's do that. And this is important information because you will see insomnia as one of the probably top five conditions in your practice. So, putting it all together, the sleep awake switch, right? So, let's see what this is all about. So, let's start by the smooth continuous here. Here we talked about the ascending neurotransmitter systems from the brain regulates the cortical arousal system on the smooth continuums. And then we talked about the how simultaneously the sleep awake cycle works, more of a another set of a circuit in the hypothalamus, right? They sleep awake, but discontinuously the on and off switch that we mentioned. The main players here are the TMN, which activate histamine, the LAT, of the hypothalamus, which activate uh, autosec, orexin, orexin, and hypocretin release, which establish the wakefulness, just like the histamine, right? So we talked the VLPO, which is of the hypothalamus, which activate GABA, potentiate GABA, and induce the sleep, right? So it kind of promotes inhibition of wakefulness. And you talked about the C and the SCN of the hypothalamus, so which is the body internal clock, which is activated by melatonin, light, or darkness in activities programmed to promote either sleep or wakefulness, depending of where you are. And we talked about the time difference and how that all plays together. So when we talk about wakefulness, the circadian rhythm, right? The circadian drive. So it diminishes as the day progresses. It results in the input from light, obviously during the day, and melatonin, the activity of the SCN, also it mediated by light simultaneously. The more light you get, hypocretin or orexin as part of the awake circuit. The neurons in the tubulomammillary nucleus, or the TMN of the hypothalamus, it does this secrete histamine, which obviously increase the wakefulness, the arousal promoting cortex, and the sleep promoter inhibition. So the TMN secrete histamine, which inhibits the sleep promoter inhibition, the VLPO. So, and it kind of runs over 24-hour cycles. And then, as we talked about the nighttime and what drives the sleep, we have the increase as the daytime progresses in results of fatigue that helps with sleep, which diminish at night at rest. It results in a uh, during the day as going over the night. There is a results in adenosine accumulation. When that happens, it obviously it kind of when that happens, kind of stimulate the sleep. Know that caffeine, as you might imagine, is a adenosine antagonist, right? So the adenosine again increase until the tipping point, and then that when that happens, the VLPO triggers GABA and galantin, okay, which inhibits wakefulness. So hopefully this is kind of making a little bit more sense. This slide here, it kind of goes in a little bit more detail. We talked about the hypothalamic sleep and the wake switch. So let's just cover the wake switch one more time by the histamine, which inhibits sleep promotion, calm or wakefulness, or by orexin or hypocretin, which activates the sleep promotions and induces calmness, right? And as the switch goes off, you have the off switch is by GABA and galanin, which promotes sedation, or by antihistamine, which also produce sedation. So This is important because now we are starting to see the behind of the scenes of the medications and why do we use those medications and somewhat how they work. Okay, so here we have a little picture of it. I'm not going in the whole detail, but you can see how the GABA, galanin, and antihistamine works. And on the other side, you have the histamine in itself promotes antihistamine, puts people to sleep. Okay, so I will not go over this slide because I have a better slide coming up. But as you can see here, the time frame where the circadian rhythm takes off at 7 in the morning and it drops right at 11 o'clock at night. At that time, right, it's lowest at that time at 11 o'clock at night. You have a homeostasis, homeostatic, which is the sleep drive. It is increased and they start dropping again at the 7 in the morning. And that's when they both kind of meet and the cycle continues. We'll go over this in more detail in the next slide with a little bit more names to it. That will make it just easier. But this is important, guys. This is super duper important because now we not only understand what does it really happen behind the scenes, but now we can use our knowledge to increase or help the patients with insomnia. So really is a cogwheel analogy. Analogy. So how so? Well, so we it's very complex, right? So we have the arousal spectrum, which is kind of like a dimer switch influenced by the five neurotransmitters that we mentioned. We have the sleep awake cycle switch mediated by two who are involved in the sleep awake cycle, two opposing drives, the homeostatic sleep drive, which depends on adenosine and GABA as the part of the sleep circuit. And the other one is a circadian awake drive, which is mediated by light stimulating hypocretin and orexin, right, as part of the awake circuits. And then we also have the sleep awake switch ability to get into that sleep window and the fall of sleep based on the sleep awakening cycle. So there are lots of things going on, right? It's not a simple, hey, do a CBTI and everything's gonna be good. So let's put this all together into this chart here, right? So let's start by 7 in the morning. So 7 in the morning, GABA is suppressed, right? Histamine release to stimulate hypocrit, hypocrit, hypocretin is released. And then as the adenosine builds up, then you have the melatonin is released in the bottom there, and the GABA is released, right? And they kind of like right in the middle there, the GABA is suppressed as it gets to 11 p.m. at night. GABA is released until 11 p.m. And then after that, GABA is suppressed. So guess what? Why is this important too? Knowing the time. Because if you know the time somewhat, at GABA, 11 o'clock at PM, it's at its highest peak. And then it starts dripping. Guess what? If you miss that peak, now you have less GABA naturally, right? Then it kind of goes back to 11 to 7 o'clock in the morning, and then GABA start increase again, and the sleep awake start increasing again, and then you have a sleep window at 11 o'clock, and then sleeping again, and the cycle keeps on and on and on. So this is important because it messes it really for those folks that work at night. As you can imagine, this can mess their sleep cycle, and now you know the reason why scientifically how you can teach someone about this, right? Now, let's talk about during awake. So, who does what during when someone is awake, right? So, when someone is awake, there is a hypocretin or orexin, which is fired in phases, right? So, it's not a continually firing to maintain the arousal through the day. When presented with a stimulation like hunger, cold, stress, emotional situation, elevated blood CO2s, there will be more of a rapid phase burst of the hypocretin or orexin, leading to an increase of neurotransmitter and activation of other areas of the brain, as you can imagine, right? So things are working together to increase energy level and excitement. So when you have a orexin, not only mediate the wakefulness, but also facilitate the goal-directed motivation behavior such an increase of food intake. As you can see that, no wonder people get happier with food. They feel the good feeling, right? And that has to do too with the orexin, right? The stimulation of that. So, how about night? What happens at night, right? So, GABA increases for the first couple hours when the plateaus. We remember at 11 o'clock at night, then it started to decline before one awakes. Hypocretin or orexin level starts to decline at that time, and then plateaus, and then steadily increase before one awakes. So acetylcholine now levels fluctuate throughout the night. The lowest levels during the stage 4 of the sleep and the highest level during the REM sleep. Now, how about the dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin? Histamine fluctuate throughout the night. Lowest level during the REM sleep, and the highest level during the second stage of sleep. If you care to know where the highest levels are, especially if you're taking a test for this might be important, right? Now, again, here is the same chart. Okay, interesting there. So as you can see, the first chart here, we have a melatonin release and the darkness, and then you have a histamine release stimulation, which stimulate hypocrit release, right? And here we don't have so much of that, but we have the build up adenosine, GABA, and the gate sleep awakening cycle, right? So it really is putting all this together that makes a difference for our patients and how we educate them. So I hope you kind of now, after putting, I know this like video 1, 2, and 3 was a lot of theory. Now we're starting to put things together. So let's see what we have for our next training coming up. Bye bye.